A lot of people spend their life thinking they will do things later. Later feels harmless, later feels flexible, later feels like a second chance that is always there. You tell yourself you will start tomorrow, or next week, or after things calm down, or when you feel more ready, or when you have more time, or when you are in a better mood. It sounds reasonable in the moment. Most of the time, nothing actually changes later. You end up in the same place, just at a different date. The strange thing about later is that it always happens. Tomorrow always becomes today. But when it arrives, it does not feel different. You still feel the same hesitation, the same resistance, the same distractions, the same excuses. So you push things again. Just one more day, just one more delay, just one more small break. Over time, that pattern builds up more than people realize. Most people do not fail because they never had the chance to start. They fail because they kept restarting their chance and never using it. They failed before they even started. There's a big difference between not having time and not using time. Almost everyone has small pockets of time in their day at least. The issue is not the complete lack of time. The issue is how easily the time gets filled with anything other than what actually matters. A lot of procrastination does not feel like procrastination. It feels like waiting for the right moment. It feels like preparation. It feels like thinking things through. It feels like needing to be in the right mindset. But underneath all of that is often avoidance. Avoidance of being uncomfortable, avoidance of putting in the effort, avoidance of the possibility of doing things imperfectly. Because once you start, you are no longer just imagining the outcome. You are now on it, and you are now responsible for it. Starting is uncomfortable for most things that matter, whether it is studying, working on a project, exercising, learning a new skill, or fixing something in your life. The beginning usually feels way harder than the rest of it. That first step carries most of the hardship. Your mind starts negotiating with you. It tries to lower the difficulty. It tells you to wait until you feel better. It tells you that you can do it later with more energy. But what usually happens is that energy never shows up on its own. You create it through action, not before it. People often think motivation comes first. They imagine they will feel motivated and then they will act. But in reality, action is what creates more motivation most of the time. Once you start doing something, even in a small way, the resistance begins to drop. Not completely, but enough to keep going. The hardest part is not doing the whole task. The hardest part is convincing yourself to begin the task at all. A common thing is overthinking. People spend a lot of time planning, imagining, and preparing. They think about all the steps. They think about what could go wrong. They think about how long it will take. They think about whether it will even work. All of that thinking creates the feeling of progress without actual movement. It tricks the mind into feeling productive, but nothing really has happened yet at all. Meanwhile, time keeps moving. Days do not pause because you are thinking. Life does not slow down while you are preparing. Other people are moving forward not because they are smarter or more talented or they have more time than you, but because they started earlier or kept going longer. That difference alone can change everything over time. Another reason people delay things is because they want the conditions to be perfect. The perfect moment, the perfect energy, the perfect environment, the perfect mindset, but perfect conditions almost never exist. If you wait for everything to line up, you end up waiting forever. Real progress usually happens in imperfect conditions. People learn to work around noise, stress, lack of time, or low energy. They adjust while they go. That is how things usually get done in real life. There is also a mental trap where people believe they need to feel ready. Feeling ready is not a requirement for starting anything important. In fact, most people never feel fully ready for the things that end up changing their lives. Readiness is something that develops after repetition, not before it. You become ready by doing the thing, not by thinking about doing it. You need experience, some of it at least. The longer you delay something, the heavier it starts to feel. A task that takes 20 minutes can grow in your mind into something much bigger if you avoid it long enough. Not necessarily because the task has changed or if it became harder, but because your perception of it changed. Your mind adds pressure to it. It becomes something you are avoiding instead of something you are simply doing. That makes it harder to approach later, not easier. This is how small delays turn into bigger problems. One missed day becomes two. Two becomes four. Four becomes a week. A week becomes two, and 2 weeks become a month. And so on and so on. And once avoidance becomes normal, restarting feels even harder than starting originally. That is one of the hidden costs of later. It does not just delay progress, it increases your resistance of it. People often underestimate how much time is lost in these small moments. Those repeated small laters. 10 minutes here, an hour there, a day skipped, a task postponed. It does not feel significant in isolation, but over months and years it becomes the difference between where someone is and where they want it to be. The idea of doing it now is simple, but it is not easy. It requires ignoring the urge to wait for a better moment. It requires accepting that starting might feel uncomfortable. It requires being okay with doing things imperfectly at first. Most people already know what they need to do. The challenge is not knowing what to do, it's actually doing the thing. There's also something important about momentum. When you act immediately, you create a chain reaction. One small action makes the next one easier. A short study session leads to more focus. A short workout leads to more energy. A small task leads to more structure. But when you delay, you break that momentum before it even starts. How do you do that? Then every restart feels like you're starting from nothing, again and again. A lot of people think discipline is about doing huge, difficult things every day. But in reality, discipline is often just the ability to start when you do not feel like it. It is a small decision repeated over time. A decision to begin instead of postpone. A decision to act instead of delay. The truth is, most of the things people are waiting for do not arrive in the way they imagine. Motivation does not suddenly show up and stay forever. Time does not magically free itself. Life does not create perfect openings. You usually have to take imperfect conditions and still move forward anyway. When you look back at things you regretted not doing, it is rarely because you failed at them. It is usually because you never really tried. You never gave yourself enough consistent effort to even find out what you were capable of. That is where a lot of people ruin their potential. Not in the failure, but in the delay that never ended. Doing it now is not about rushing everything. It is not about constant pressure or forcing yourself into burning out. It is about breaking the habit of endless delaying. It is about treating the present moment as the only real place, which it is, where change can actually happen. Because it is. There's no future moment where life suddenly becomes easier to start. There's only now, repeated over and over again. And every time you choose to delay, you are choosing a version of your life where progress happens later instead of today. At some point, the difference between people is not talent or intelligence, it is how quickly they act on what they already know they should do. Some people move quickly, some people delay. Over time, that gap becomes visible in results, in skills, and in opportunities. And most of it comes down to a simple pattern: do it now, or let it become something you keep postponing until it disappears into another version of later that never arrives.